Let's talk about Torah for a moment. Torah was given to who? Musa alayhi salam. Okay, Musa alayhi salam goes before Allah on the mountain. For the first time he's going to speak with Allah. Yeah? And when he goes and speaks with Allah, one of the first things Allah tells him, He says, Inna sa'ata atiyatun. The hour is coming. Listen carefully now. The hour is coming. Akadu ukhfiha. I'm keeping it almost hidden. Meaning when exactly is the hour? What is the hour, by the way? The day of judgment. Everybody knows, yeah? So Musa alayhi salam is told the day of judgment is coming. But I'm keeping it almost hidden. Meaning some signs are there, but I'm not opening all the signs before you. لِتُجْزَى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا تَسْعَى. So every single person can be given according to whatever effort they made.
إنني أنا الله لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدني وأقم الصلاة لذكري إن الساعة آتية أكاد أخفيها لتجزى كل نفس بما تسعى.
The reason I'm quoting this ayah before you is one of the first teachings given to Musa alayhi salam in the Quran is what? That the day of judgment is coming. And he said that there are signs of the day of judgment. And he also said that what will happen on the day of judgment, what's the most important part of the day of judgment? Every person will be given the efforts they made. Now, when you look at Jewish tradition, a lot of Jewish tradition, the rabbinic tradition now, if you go back a few centuries even before Jesus, you'll discover that the Jews were actually broken up into two major religious groups, the Sadducees and the Pharisees. The Sadducees were basically custodians of their Qibla. What's their Qibla? Jerusalem, okay? Then these were also religious people. They did rituals and worship, and they believed that the entire religion is focused on the worship of the temple and sacrifices in front of the temple. And what's really interesting is the Sadducees did not believe in an akhirah. They believe that we will be turned into dust, and that's the end of it. There is no afterlife. Custodians of the house of Allah who don't believe in akhirah. The other group was the Pharisees, and these were rabbis also. What we have nowadays is the rabbi tradition, the Orthodox Judaism. Their ancestors are the Pharisees. They actually did believe in a day of resurrection. And they also believed in a part of Torah that was not written. It was only transmitted orally, meaning that it was recited and passed down, but it wasn't written down, okay? And this is a smaller group that believed, actually there's a significant group also that believed that there is such a thing as an akhirah. But you know what? Even they didn't believe that the akhirah is for every single individual. They believed nations will be judged, but not people. So they had a very different concept of the akhirah that was left.
Some Jews will deny absolutely that there is any afterlife and concentrate entirely on this world.
In the Gemara, there are 5 opinions as to what happens after death.
In medieval mystical Judaism, ideas about reincarnation entered in as well.
Now, does this sound different from what Musa was given the night he went before Allah? Yeah. So you can tell a lot has changed over the centuries with them. Even the group that has some concept of the akhirah has a very rough concept of the akhirah. And when their temple was destroyed, enemies came, several other nations came and destroyed the temple. And the temple was completely destroyed and the Jews were exiled. Which group believes that the religion centers around the temple? The Sadducees. Their historians argue they were almost completely wiped out. And the only ones left were the Pharisees, who had some concept of akhirah. Even there it's weak. As a matter of fact, if you study the Hebrew Bible, until the very end of the Hebrew Bible, you don't find any mention of akhirah, Yawm al-Qiyamah, Jannah, Nar, pretty much nothing.
How many times do you think the Hebrew Bible, that is, the 5 books of Moses, discusses the afterlife, heaven? You'll be shocked. The answer is a whopping great 0.
In the Hebrew Bible, there is very little about afterlife.
Nothing. Such a central concept in the Quran. Can you imagine? Every other passage in the Quran is somehow or the other about what? The akhirah. And in the Jewish tradition, it was almost completely gone. Then you have books later on, like the book of Job, or the book of Ecclesiastes, who actually straight up directly said, we will just be turned into dust and there is no resurrection. In their books. Complete denial of the akhirah. There is no such thing as the akhirah. This concept somehow though, by the will of Allah, somehow some of it survived in oral tradition and made its way back a couple of centuries before Isa alayhi salam. And slowly some groups of Jews started believing in the afterlife again. As a matter of fact, in the Bible, whatever record we have, in the New Testament, Jesus actually argues with a group of Sadducees. Remember, the Sadducees were the ones who did not believe in the akhirah. He debates with them about the existence of an akhirah. So he's actually talking to fellow Jews, Muslims of that time, who don't believe in an afterlife.
For when they shall rise from the dead, they neither marry, nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels which are in heaven. And as touching the dead, that they rise. Have ye not read in the book of Moses, how in the bush God spake unto him, saying, I am the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. How in the bush God spake unto him,
The fundamentals of our faith are Iman in Allah, belief in God, belief in revelation, and belief in an afterlife. Of these three, which one was mostly forgotten by them, or ignored by them, or completely corrupted? Belief in the afterlife. Now you appreciate the wisdom of this ayah. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ. Now what was sent to us, and what was sent before us, includes belief in God, stories of prophets, it includes laws, ahkam. But what one thing of all the revelation that Allah highlighted at the end of this ayah, وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. And especially when it comes to the final life, they have absolute conviction. They're absolutely convinced. As a matter of fact, Isa alayhi salam, in whatever's left of the Bible and how much of we can rely on, we don't know, even uses the word paradise, what goes back to Al-Firdaus in the Bible. And when I said a couple of centuries ago this belief was kind of revived among them, they did have two terms that are similar to the Quran, Gehenna and Gan. Gehenna is the Hebrew for Jahannam, and Gan is the Hebrew for Jannah.
Immortal soul which dwells within us when we're alive, but then departs to a spiritual paradise after death. The rabbis usually named this Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. And they also spoke of Gehinnom, Gehenna, a sort of purgatory where the soul is cleansed of its sinfulness before going to paradise.
They did use these terms. They did make a comeback, but even then it was very, very vague. Nothing even close to the description of Jannah and Nar that you find in the Quran. Nothing even close.
Judaism has a what's called it would be considered a purgatory, I think, in your religion. It lasts for 11 months for all Jews, even the lowest of us. But it's basically to help the soul transition from a physical experience to a spiritual existence.
The rabbis generally didn't believe in eternal damnation, but only a temporary process of purgation.
Eternal damnation? Not possible.
ذلك بأنهم قالوا لن تمسنا النار إلا أياما معدودات وغرهم في دينهم ما كانوا يفترون.
And that's why when they came to this book, the thing that hit them like no other is the akhirah. The thing that was just completely almost lost on them, or very vague. Even there were concepts like, we're going to be ghost-like figures, shadowy figures, and the body will not be resurrected, only the soul will be resurrected.
When we die, we don't have any physical life left. We go somewhere as souls. My soul doesn't burn up, my soul's not physical, fire's not going to affect my soul. So the Jewish idea of heaven and hell is much more of a emotional, spiritual reality than it is a physical reality.
And there's even traces that they developed that idea from Plato's philosophy. because they figured the body decays and dies, so how are we going to be resurrected? Maybe some soul survives and the body will be gone forever. We know that the body will also be revived. That's what our belief is. What I wanted to try and conclude with today is that the iman in the akhirah, that human beings are going to experience death. And after death of this world, there is another life that starts inside of their graves. And then that life is going to take another form when the trumpet is blown, the horn is blown into, and humanity will rise again. And they're going to be judged one by one by one for every last thing that they did. And then they're going to walk a path. And that path is going to lead them either towards heaven or towards hell. This entire life cycle that the Muslims have always believed in, every child here knows, we take it for granted. Like Iman in Akhirah, of course we believe in Akhirah. This thing was erased from the minds of people that were before us. It was erased from them. It was taken away from their consciousness. And it only, droplets of it remained. And Allah Azza wa Jal sent this Qur'an to restore that faith, to revive Iman in the Akhirah. And so, وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. Notice yu'minun was used, they have Iman. And finally, yuqinun is used. Yaqeen. Yaqeen in Arabic means to have absolute conviction. Of all the things they believe, the one thing they never forget about is the afterlife. The idea that they're going to stand in front of Allah.
قل يا أهل الكتاب لا تغلوا في دينكم غير الحق ولا تتبعوا أهواء قوم قد ضلوا من قبل وأضلوا كثيرا وضلوا عن سواء السبيل.
There is only one God, La ilaha illallah.